further out, that's why.
Oh.
Yeah, maybe it's like that bar right there, like Seabar.
A devastating fatal collision outside Dryden last Friday. Victims have been identified on social.
Two youth have been identified as the victims in a fatal highway crash. Thunder Bay City Council will vote on a new homelessness strategy. And hundreds of Canadians are stranded in Sudan as fighting rages on. Good evening and thank you for joining us. New information has come to light about a devastating fatal collision outside Dryden last Friday. The victims have been identified on social media as two youth, Callie and Evan Joseph of Shoal Lake 39. Lee Noonan has more information. She joins us in studio. Lee.
Thank you, Ryan. It appears the siblings were traveling to Thunder Bay with their parents, Serena and Cal Joseph, who were also transported to hospital and were discharged later that day. Both Callie and Evan Joseph were avid minor hockey players, and there's been a massive outpouring of support and of grief from the hockey community around the region. The family of four was traveling to Thunder Bay for the Battle on the Bay hockey tournament, which took place this weekend at the Fort William First Nation Arena. The A-Division champs, the Wash-Ups, posed for a photo with Callie's team, the Shoal Lake Flyers, and her number 23 jersey. They pledged to donate their entire $2,000 tournament prize money to the Josephs. Several other teams also donated their winnings. Meanwhile, a GoFundMe campaign has been set up to raise funds to support the family in the aftermath of this devastating loss. The campaign exceeded its $35,000 goals in less than a day, with donations still coming in. OPP are continuing to investigate the three-vehicle crash and ask anyone with information to come forward. Lee Noonan, TBT News.
A sentence was handed down this morning in a Thunder Bay homicide case more than 4 years after the body of 17-year-old Braden Jacob was found at Chapels Park. 27-year-old Jonathan Yellowhead was found guilty of manslaughter last August following a 2-week trial. Jacob was from Webequie First Nation and was here in the city for grief counseling. The court heard Jacob and Yellowhead left an Arthur Street hotel together in December of 2018 and were seen walking toward the Limbrick Street area. Jacob was reported missing the next day and his body was discovered 3 days later. Jacob's DNA was found in bloodstains on Yellowhead's backpack and on the door frame of a Limbrick residence. The Crown had asked for Yellowhead to spend 8 to 12 years in prison, while the defense argued for 3 to 5 years. The judge decided on a sentence of 5 years and 4 months. With credit for time served, Yellowhead will spend another 22 months behind bars. Thunder Bay City Council will vote tonight whether to adopt a human rights-based approach when responding to homelessness. If approved, it will add $20,000 to the 2024 budget, but officials say it addresses many of the city's strategic plans. The new approach applies to dealing with encampments. It would see community partners create care plans for the unsheltered and connect them with stable housing. There's also a focus on consulting with those living in encampments and with Indigenous leaders. Elevate NWO has already been working directly with the homeless to find them housing. Executive Director Holly Govan says consultation is crucial moving forward.
This issue is disproportionately impacting Indigenous people. And so for us to go out and to make big, grandiose plans without proper consultation is to set things up to fail, and most importantly, to set those people who were trying to serve up to fail. And so I was really encouraged to see that language was front and center in this report.
Also tonight, Council will receive a first quarter budget variance update. The memo mentions a $500,000 estimated deficit equal to 0.2% of the total city budget. Thunder Bay OPP have now charged the driver of a transport that was involved in the latest crash at Sistonen's Corner. It happened around 3:20 yesterday afternoon between a van and the transport. The collision forced the closure of the notorious intersection for several hours. Eyewitnesses say the transport went through the stop sign at the end of Highway 102 and struck the van, which was heading westbound along Highway 1117. The 61-year-old female driver of the van was taken to hospital with a leg injury. The transport driver, a 26-year-old Winnipeg man, has been charged with failing to yield at an intersection. This is the fourth such incident at Sistonen's Corner in the past 2 years. A pedestrian has been charged after being struck by a vehicle on Arthur Street Saturday night. It happened just after 10 o'clock. The 26-year-old was sent to hospital with serious but non-life-threatening injuries after he was hit and sent into a snowbank. According to Thunder Bay Police, the man has been charged for failing to use a crosswalk. Thunder Bay nurses held an information rally outside Intercity Shopping Centre yesterday, calling for better wages and staffing ratios to provide better care to their patients. This comes after contract talks between the Ontario Nurses Association and the province's hospitals ended without an agreement, forcing the parties to head to arbitration. This local rally was one of many across Ontario. The nurses were out looking for support for approximately 60,000 hospital sector registered nurses and healthcare professionals in the province. The group also had petitions in hand outlining what they believe will improve staffing ratios and ultimately patient care. That includes better working conditions and compensation to retain current nurses and coax others who have left back into the field. On ONA Local 73 Bargaining Unit President Donna Wheel says it was great to see so many local nurses come out. She hopes community members will voice their support as well.
It's great. When nurses come together, we're really usually not outside voice kind of people, and the times have become so much that nurses are now becoming more vocal in Thunder Bay. I hope they think that nurses are there as patient advocates, that we want the best care for Thunder Bay residents, and that we know that there is a need for the government not to privatize healthcare, and that they start to think about these matters so that they actually put their voices out as well.
More questions are being raised at Queen's Park today about a deal to develop Ontario Place in the GTA. The government announced last week it plans to move the Science Centre to the site and allow a company to operate a spa on the waterfront property. Siobhan Morris has the latest details.
The government wants to return Ontario Place to glory. In that comeback plan is a controversial spa. The contract with the operator of that spa will reportedly stretch for 95 years. A number of the co-chair of a group pushing to maintain public access to Ontario Place is stunned by.
I'm thinking about my children who won't have this public space, my children's children, and then their children's children.
With Ontarians already on the hook for at least $650 million, the opposition worries about getting a raw deal.
This government entered into this contract on behalf of the people of Ontario, so my question is to the Premier, when will they provide Ontarians with a copy of the contract?
Sharing those details isn't likely. A spokesperson for the Minister of Infrastructure says the terms of the lease are confidential to protect the integrity of future negotiations. They insist this will help the government get the best deal for taxpayers.
Our tenants will be contributing $500 million of injection to the site to bring it back to life, and they will also be contributing to annual maintenance and repair costs, which has not happened before.
Norm DePasquale thought the government would have learned from the 1999 sell-off of Highway 407. 99 years for about $3 billion.
Long-term deals with private operators don't benefit the public in the long run. Like when we look at long-term leases like this, it's usually people like the Harbourfront Centre, the Science Centre, public organizations. Like even Disneyland has not been in operation for 95 years.
He and opposition parties are concerned about how the site may evolve.
Is that water park going to be there for 95 years? What's going to be there? What are we going to allow to have there? What permissions do they have? We don't know.
Consultations on Ontario Place's makeover continue over the next few months. Siobhan Morris, CTV News.
The Bangladeshi Association of Thunder Bay organized an Eid celebration on Sunday to introduce people to the new organization and bring the community together. Jessica Clement reports on that.
Over 100 people came out to the Oliver Road Community Centre for the Bangladeshi Association of Thunder Bay's Eid celebration. The event started off with introducing the newly formed association to attendees before getting into the festivities, which included a fashion show and musical performances. This is the first time the group has hosted the celebration through their association. An event coordinator, Nahid Annie, says she's excited they're able to gather the community together for a celebration like Eid.
This was a dream of mine for a long time. It's been on and off 17 years I've been living in Thunder Bay, and so that's how long it is. So I'm pretty excited to have this association growing. Our community is growing as well, so I'm pretty excited.
Eid al-Fitr is one of the biggest holidays in the Muslim community, which Association Vice President MD Nawaz says marks the end of a month-long dawn to sunset fast.
We follow the lunar year, so after fasting 1 month continuously, this festival comes up. So we enjoy this very much. This is one of the most important festivals in Bangladesh.
Annie says the main intention of the event was to bring the community together to support one another, especially the newcomers. Association President Asanul Habib says their community is growing.
This community is developing to become a more like a bigger communities, and that's why we are planning and we are preparing for it, so that as the more people come and join in Thunder Bay, and then we are properly structured and we are properly, and it can also help other people to join us.
More information about the Bangladeshi Association of Thunder Bay can be found on their Facebook page. Jessica Clement, TBT News.
A popular British reality TV show shot its latest season in Canada and made a stop right here in Thunder Bay. Race Around the World sees teams complete a 16,000-kilometer journey in just 50 days, and a couple of contestants took the opportunity to learn more about the city while passing through.
It looks like a native chief lying down with his arms crossed. Over there is his head, and that's his legs.
The goal of the show is for contestants to earn money during stops to pay for their travel. It's part of a cross-country race that began in Vancouver and finished in St. John's. While in Thunder Bay, one team took a skate at Norwest Arena, while another spent time cleaning a boat at the marina to earn some cash. That boat was a Sail Superior vessel. Captain Gregory Haru says it was a unique experience.
If I get my boat cleaned and I'm on British television, that's a great thing for Sail Superior and for the city of Thunder Bay and all the people who might travel through this area or seen a bit of that show.
A little bit of activity in that may not necessarily be, a tourism value, but they certainly showcase the landscape of the area. The marina, the waterfront, Nemki Waju over at Fort William First Nation, Mount McKay, the Lookout, and the Sleeping Giant as well. So they really kind of covered the geography of the area very well.
While in the region, one team also made a stop in Kenora to renovate a lakeside property. Well, a Thunder Bay woman reached a milestone that not many of us will be able to achieve in our lifetimes. Florence Pampu just celebrated her 100th birthday this past weekend. The party was held at the North End Community Centre and had Pampu reminiscing about a century's worth of memories and experiences. The day was filled with birthday wishes for the newly minted centenarian as family members and friends dropped by throughout the afternoon. Pampu says she was thrilled to see so many people come out to celebrate her birthday.
It feels great, yeah. I mean, you don't realize you have so many friends still. Yeah, they come.
It's really nice to have everybody here right now celebrating my mom's 100th birthday. It's not just my mom, my sister along, and all of our relatives have really made a big effort to come and celebrate our mother, our grandmother, our great-grandmother. We're all here to celebrate her birthday, and it's an awesome day for all of us.
Now, there was also a special visitor at the party as Mayor Ken Boshkoff dropped by to wish her a happy 100th birthday. And those sentiments are echoed from all of us here at TBT News as well. Happy birthday, Florence. Well, Fiona, let's turn to weather now. Not a bad day out there. It feels like maybe we're seeing some signs of spring.
There's an optimistic thought, and it's hard to be optimistic these days because that snow keeps coming. We did have a couple of brief periods of light snow. It's almost more like snow grains falling today. But temperature-wise, the overnight lows are not bad. -2, wind chill of -5, but it's the daytime. We're still far and away from what we should be seeing. We should be already into the double digits. Today we topped out at 3 Celsius with winds from the east-northeast, 3 to 16 kilometers per hour. And we're not the only one feeling it. It's very consistent throughout the region. More clouds as you head further west. Fort Frances is currently at a high of 5, but that's as warm as she got. Atikokan and Kenora both at 4, 3 in Dryden and Red Lake. Mostly cloudy skies. Sioux Lookout also on the plus side, but just barely at 2, 3 in Armstrong and Greenstone, also with mostly cloudy skies. Along the North Shore, they're also currently at 3. Sault Ste. Marie, the hot spot, at a whole 6 Celsius under mostly cloudy conditions. Here in the city of Thunder Bay, we will once again slip below the freezing mark. Basically going to be a repeat of last night, doing it again tonight. -2, wind chills of -6 under partly cloudy skies. And as we head into Tuesday, we should be completely out of the line of fire of this system. No more periodic light snow showers, but it is still going to be cooler than normal. We are going to see a repeat of today's temperatures. And don't think that just because Ryan has warm thoughts that that's the end of the snow, because yes, there's a chance at another snowstorm. I'll have more details on that later on in the news hour.
Listen, Fiona, you complain when I'm too pessimistic about the weather forecast. Now I try to insert a little optimism into the proceedings.
I want realism. I just want realism.
Well, I'm holding out hope. It'll be
Here's
spring.
hoping.
It'll be spring temperatures soon. You heard it here. All right, well, moving on now. Violence rages on in Sudan, and hundreds of Canadians are still trapped in that country. We'll tell you what's being done to bring them home right after the break.
We are suffering of lack of food, lack of electricity, lack of water.
Countries are racing to get their citizens out of Sudan amid mounting fears the violence will escalate there into a full-blown civil war. Heather Wright reports on efforts to help Canadians trapped in the country.
With the hope of a ceasefire gone, people are desperately trying to flee Sudan as it descends further into violence.
They're running out of food right now. There is no fresh water at all. My brother is taking a risk every single day just to go and grab water.
There is no power or running water in the capital of Khartoum, while internet and phone services are largely down. Canada has closed its embassy in the country and staff have been evacuated. While Global Affairs has provided little information about efforts to get Canadians out, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau confirmed today a number of citizens were evacuated on a German plane.
Just heard earlier today that a German plane lifted off from Khartoum with one German citizen on it and 58 Canadian citizens on it.
Those still trapped in the country are being told to shelter in place as Global Affairs works to assist the roughly 1,600 who have formally registered with the ministry. We are exploring options regarding departure assistance in collaboration with like-minded countries as soon as conditions allow, Foreign Affairs Minister Melanie Joly said today in a tweet.
I'm not sure why there's such a delay or difficulty getting Canadian citizens out.
Hundreds have been killed and thousands injured since fighting broke out 10 days ago after power-sharing negotiations between the country's armed forces and its paramilitary troops rapidly deteriorated. Since then, countries have been racing to get their citizens out. France, Italy, Germany, Spain, and others have sent planes, while U.S. Special Forces evacuated 70 embassy workers and their families Sunday morning. 7 Canadians were among those rescued, according to the New York Times.
The violence must stop.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres pleaded with both sides to honor a ceasefire and return to talks.
I am in constant contact with the parties to the conflict, and I've called on them to de-escalate tensions and to return to the negotiating table.
The risk of a humanitarian disaster is also growing. About a third of Sudan's population needed aid before this conflict, and now agencies are struggling to get to those in need because of the fighting. Heather Wright, CTV News, Toronto.
Closer to home, the government is proposing changes to the air passenger protection bill that it says improve the chances of travelers being compensated for flight delays and cancellations. But critics insist the new rules won't impose more accountability on the airlines. Judy Trinh tells us why.
Travel chaos this past holiday season canceled hundreds of flights and left thousands of travelers in the lurch. Today, the transportation minister proposed new passenger protections.
I really think airlines left government no choice after what we saw to further clarify the rules and make sure that passenger rights are protected.
Proposed amendments to the 2019 Passengers' Rights Bill include mandatory compensation, except in very limited circumstances, mandatory standards of treatment during disruptions, including providing food and water, and increasing maximum fines on the airlines tenfold to $250,000.
The devil is going to be in the details. We're really going to have to understand what those exemptions are that the minister is talking about.
I mean, there's the obvious one, a snowstorm.
The exemption for severe weather could give airlines a broad excuse not to compensate. Passenger advocacy groups say the government has to narrow the definition.
The greater concern is if we have a snowstorm in Nova Scotia, is there going to be an excuse for not compensating passengers 2 days later in Vancouver?
There are now more than 45,000 complaints before the Canadian Transportation Agency. The NDP says it's not even clear how many people have been compensated.
So I've yet to speak to anyone who's received compensation. One of the challenges that we're seeing is that there's very little information coming out of the CTA as to the amount of claims that are being awarded and the financial amounts.
The National Airlines Council of Canada says the proposed measures won't improve air travel, but could actually lead to higher prices in flights, as the airlines are forced to pass on costs to customers. Judy Trinh, CTV News, Ottawa.
More than 150,000 public service workers are back on the picket lines across the country today after weekend talks failed to produce a new deal. This is day 6 of the strike, and the union is threatening to escalate job action to get Ottawa's attention. Rahim Ladani reports.
It's a new sign of escalation. Protesting workers stopping the public from entering this federal government building in Toronto.
There's going to be a little bit more disruption. We will be holding back the lines a little bit more, making them a little bit more thicker in certain places. It's it's going to be interesting today.
No violence has been reported, though as the 150,000 federal servants continue to picket across the country, members of the public are feeling the impact. This gentleman was spotted filing his income taxes by mail before the May 1st deadline, right in front of a Service Canada office. But he may be waiting a long time for a potential refund.
So if public opinion starts to get very negative, then there's a strategic balance that the union leadership and its members has to take account of, which is you might get a government in power in the future that is sort of elected because of the resentment that public opinion has been built up around the strike.
Now in its 6th day, the walkout is affecting about 1/3 of the total workforce and includes the Canada Revenue Agency, passport offices, immigration and citizenship. While those services suffer because of the strike, the union says its members have been experiencing hardship for nearly 2 years since contract negotiations began.
The public service employees are very well paid and have it made. It's not accurate. And that's exactly why we're here today, to ensure that these workers can get a lift up so that these workers can be able to take care of their families.
The back and forth between the Public Service Alliance of Canada and the federal government heated up over the weekend when the president of the Treasury Board appeared to take a verbal jab at the union.
There have been up and down. There's been kicking and screaming.
But those words aren't sitting well with members on the front lines.
I think that's very immature, first of all. I know that our bargaining teams are working very hard to come to a fair negotiated settlement.
Until then, one of the largest strikes in Canadian history marches on.
An unexpected announcement out of the U.S. Fox News says it's parted ways with popular host Tucker Carlson. This just days after Fox paid out the $787.5 million to Dominion Voting Systems to settle a defamation lawsuit. Dominion accused Fox News of knowingly and recklessly spreading claims about its machines switching votes cast in the 2020 election. ABC's M. Wynn has the latest.
Fox News' highest-rated primetime host, Tucker Carlson, is out. The news channel abruptly issuing a statement saying the two sides have mutually agreed to part ways, adding Carlson's last show was this past Friday. Another Fox News host, Harris Faulkner, announcing his sudden departure.
We want to thank Tucker Carlson for his service to the network.
This development coming nearly a week after a massive $787.5 million settlement was announced between the network and Dominion Voting Systems.